As we are all aware, the war caused massive destruction all around the world wherever it occurred. This was certainly the case in many parts of Papua New Guinea. This is Mission Alive. I'm Roger from MSC Mission Office. I want to continue a bit of our discussion of the war and the effect it had on our mission operations. In Rabaul, where the Japanese came and where we MSCs and probably the Australians were first affected by this massive invasion of Japanese. Eventually the missionaries were imprisoned, firstly at Vinapopi, and the Japanese took over the whole mission station as their headquarters because there were buildings, and also they thought maybe because it was a mission station and church and everything, it might be a bit protected from enemy raids. Then eventually the missionaries were imprisoned in caves in Ramali Valley, where they dug tunnels into the hills to live in there. But when the Allies came to invade and drive the Japanese out, there was massive amounts of bombing. So practically everything was bombed to the ground. So after the war and everything, was massive cleanup and rebuilding. Some young priests from Australia who had been ordained recently were sent there to bolster the workforce, because one of the things that happened too in the war, new missionaries coming from Europe, in Rabaul's case from Germany, just didn't come because of the war in Europe. No way to move, to travel, so there was a bit of a backlog of manpower. So Australia sent some men up there to help with the recovery, principally to rebuild schools, hospitals, residences, and so on and so forth. Amongst them was one young priest, a name of Frank Quirk, who decided after some time that I didn't become a priest to be a builder. And at that stage our Japanese mission was opening up, and he went up there and spent the rest of his life up there. So he took a totally different direction because he saw his work as a missionary as something other than building infrastructure, as much as infrastructure is necessary, and that is one means by which we get on with the task of mission of evangelizing. So that was part of the story up there of rebuilding. And then later, as time went on, replacement priests and brothers and sisters came out of Germany and other places in Europe to replace those who'd probably got old, and probably a lot then went on leave because they wouldn't have been on leave for all those war years. And the Japanese were in and around Rabaul for a number of years, so it was a bit of a long-term, not just an invasion and move on, but it was a long-term settlement there. So there's many stories about that Japanese time there and what happened after the war. And some of the older people from that part of the world, at least some years ago, could still sing Japanese songs, because they said the Japanese had rice paddies, and the local people would work in the rice paddies with them. So there was all of that. And then after the war, because of the destruction in Japan and the number of soldiers and sailors that would be returning, the Japanese government and the American occupation force there said we can't handle them all at one time. So many hundreds of Japanese soldiers around Rabaul were left there in Rabaul, given some land and said, there's some land, grow your food, look after yourselves. So that's what happened. And so with that then, with the mission, there was a lot of rebuilding, re-establishment of places, and replacement of personnel to go on with the mission. So mission goes like that. There's other stories about the destruction from the war and what happened afterwards. So this is the mission. The mission continues to be alive, as it is today. Thank you for being with us.